We're hearing the word truce. Do you think this is a truce in the trade war?
I don't like calling it a trade war. I prefer trade dispute or a series of disputes, and hopefully it won't become a trade war in the months and years ahead. But we do have a suspension of escalation of retaliatory measures on both sides that I think are largely unwelcome. And so the degree to which we have good news in the context of suspending any further escalation, giving them the parties 90 days to see what they can work out on some very difficult structural market reforms. And frankly, most of that burden will be on China. So we have good news. The numbers will likely go down in terms of the trade deficit between the U.S. and China as China agrees to purchase large amounts of American manufactured and grown products and services. But the degrees to which the Communist Party is able to actually implement the kind of reforms on forced technology transfers, on IP protection issues, cyber intrusion, non-tariff barriers, and general market access to the Chinese economy, which is the U.S. series of positions that it wants progress on, that's going to be the strategic determinant of success, and we really won't know until early, maybe the first half of 2019.
How significant is this development, and how are other businesses, governments looking at this meeting? What can we expect on Monday?
I think
markets and that sort of thing.
I think the markets will react generally positively. First of all, you don't have any new tariffs or any new threats going back and forth. So that's good news again. You have the two largest economies in the world, and this is the single most important strategic relationship on planet Earth. And it will remain this way for years and decades to come. So the degree to which both leaders have a relatively good, open, honest relationship with one another, are able to put their problems on the table to resolve them. One, in terms of the trade basket, then these structural market reforms, but also ideally, how they're able to address geopolitical issues that are very important in the Asian region, the Pacific region, and also the Indian Ocean. So whether we're talking about the South China Sea, the North Korea denuclearization issue, and the like, all of these are part of a larger strategic basket of concerns, but we're off to a good start.
The president of the U.S.-China Business Council praised what happened, but he's also calling for a way to remove the current tariffs that are in place, that a lot of businesses and industries would like to see that be resolved as well. Is that realistic? Could that happen?
I don't believe so. I mean, again, from President Trump's perspective, the only reason that the U.S. and China are at what is considered to be a productive phase of this negotiating process is because he was willing to risk pain on the American economy, and businesses are hurting. There's no doubt about it, and workers are hurting, short-term, tactically, for long-term benefit. And so I think the president sees himself, of course, as the master negotiator, the master deal maker. It takes a little bit of risk, a little bit of pain to get to where you want to be, but it seems to me that President Trump believes in himself and his ability to get President Xi to sit down to the table, make some very difficult decisions for the Chinese political system and the Chinese economy, but ultimately to the benefit of the U.S., China, and global markets.
What would you say are the three biggest takeaways from the G20 overall?
I think, first of all, we have good news here, right? I can't reinforce that enough. We're off to a good start in terms of the next phase of the U.S.-China trade talks. I think what we have here in the context of the trade deals that the United States was able to achieve with Mexico and Canada, having them signed here sent an important signal to the rest of the world. The U.S. wants to do better trade deals. It's not isolationist. It's not looking to rip up every agreement and walk away from the table. It wants to improve its trade relations with countries around the world and have everyone compete on as level a playing field as possible, including what the president said several months ago. The ideal world situation would be zero tariffs for everyone. But I think also a very important geopolitical takeaway, Elaine, is the Russia-Saudi Arabia relationship and sort of the bromance now between Vladimir Putin and Mohammed bin Salman, and the high fives.
Talking about. Right,
it's almost high fives, almost elated to see one another. And I think, A, there's a reassurance there to Saudi Arabia that if the West begins to isolate it in potentially very dangerous ways, that Russia has Saudi Arabia's back, and that the two countries will continue to cooperate closely on production cuts on oil to protect their economies from what's been a precipitous drop in oil prices over the last few weeks.
Some things to watch. John, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.